You're not like activist level.
No, God, no. I killed a man last night. Had nothing to do with politics. I just killed a man.
Yeah.
I hear this. Yeah.
Talk shit about THC.
Like, first of all,
Jesus Christ.
you have an illness if that's the case. And that's just not how penises work.
And not only that, but like, yeah.
Second of all,
actually, I'm pretty sure that might be a horse cock.
it very well could be. Second of all, like, you don't understand how politics work either when you made that image, but that's fine. Enjoy it. I'm glad you're having fun. I guess
That's our intro.
that's our intro.
Oh.
All right, it's time for the clink, clink, clunk.
Clink, clank.
Clank.
Clink, clink, clunk.
Clank,
Clink, clink, clink. That's almost empty. Hello and welcome to Strange Happy Hour. I am one of your hosts, Brent the Jesterhead Metcalfe. Along to my right,
John Pettit, handsome John.
full beard. Look at that. On my left, bare skinned like a buttocks.
The dispatcher, Mark Plover.
A child's buttocks.
Lots of shit coming out between those cheeks. Oh, that was too
what
good.
a burn.
Wow.
That was too good. We, of course,
What a dick.
are here to bring you each and every week the various video game and tech news. Normally, we have a long-running list of topics that we want to talk about, narrow it down to three, the things that we'd like to discuss. However, because of last week, we promised you an episode where we would discuss CES 2020. So that is all we're talking about. We don't have time to talk about the fact that PlayStation will not be at E3. We do not have time to talk about the Pokemon Direct that some people are mad about because they suck, and I can't get over that fact. Actually, I can get over that fact because the DLC looks great.
You know what you can't get over? Final Fantasy VII
Remake being delayed, but it gives me time for Iron Man VR now.
Yeah.
But
No.
we do have enough time on this very show right now to discuss the important shit. The important shit is,
Tried
of course,
so hard,
going
you
to
failed.
be our CES list. So unlike our normal spiel, you'll probably notice in the description, floating above me miraculously like a cloud.
So what does CES stand for? Computers, entertainment, and shit?
Actually, you were kind of close.
No. Entertainment show. There's no A.
Well, it's more like it's accepted. You know, it's sometimes it's like CE little a S. Oh,
Oh, there it is.
And now here we are, the show with the first party foul. He's gonna have to chug that entire
no.
terrible. No, yeah, it's a party foul.
Party foul.
Yeah,
We're at a party.
we're at a party. It's a
working.
party.
This is
each and every week.
always a party here.
Yeah, it's true.
Unlike our normal description, you will not find a running tally of the important shit. What you will find is a link to another Google Doc that I have formatted for all of us. It is broken down by category. We have various stories to go over there. We will probably dive into some a little bit deeper. Some we're going to skim over the top. But this is our role of... Oh, it's so sensual. I thought you were going to smack yourself in the face for the first second.
I thought about throwing it at you, and I was like, I know, we're doing
I
stuff.
There's going to be a
appreciate
wet
you
spot on the floor now.
Not. It's also going to be sticky. We're going to need to wipe that down.
No, there's going to be two.
So I think what we're going to do, the rundown here, it looks like it's TVs, gaming, audio, computers, and then miscellaneous. So I'm going to start with TVs simply because that's probably what you're watching us on. That's not true.
Yep.
You're probably watching us on a phone. But
Phone,
TVs are
probably
fun.
tablets.
New technology.
Computer
Laptops.
monitors.
There's so many. PS4 through your phone. Because you can do remote play. It looks like LG is announcing their OLED TVs will now be available in G-Sync and FreeSync, which is not, I don't think, a terrible surprise.
Nope.
I think everyone's moving that direction.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Well, so the funny part is they can slap G-Sync on there because they probably got the certification for it from Nvidia.
Yep.
But that doesn't mean anything anymore.
Of course.
You know, Nvidia finally said, screw it, we're just going to finally accept the FreeSync standard, which is, or OpenSync is technically what it's called, but FreeSync abides by the OpenSync standard. So FreeSync is sort of like universal now. If you say you support FreeSync, NVIDIA cards can use it too.
So just so we get, like, when we're talking about FreeSync, G-Sync, Spot, whatever you want to call it.
G-Sync is like a sexual sink that has a spot on it. A FreeSync is one you can take with you, and then an OpenSync is one that doesn't have dishes in it. Zing! I want you to know.
That was so far to the left.
talking.
I was like, it's got another sexual innuendo.
But essentially, that means that there's not going to be any tear when you're moving,
Right.
fast across while you're playing COD, and you're
The blank sync system, that kind of thing, the
Archetyping,
OpenSync,
whatever.
FreeSync, G-Sync systems, basically, and G-Sync being sort of the first of this. The idea was basically your monitor refreshes as quickly as your computer does.
Okay.
At least. And the idea is that as soon as a full frame is ready for your graphics card to render, it will tell the monitor to draw that full frame.
I think I saw
when
a
it's
number
ready.
being 2.8 milliseconds.
What do you
So
mean?
I saw a number somewhere within that article. I can't remember if it was that one. That the refresh rate ends up being like every 2.8 milliseconds. Or something.
Refresh rate's variable. Because that's the idea, is that a computer isn't always the best at doing a static frame rate. PlayStation 4s don't do it. You'll see frames that are otherwise.
My PlayStation 4 does.
It depends on what you're playing.
It doesn't. You're right. That is how that works.
But the idea is if you're playing a game at 30 frames a second, your monitor's refreshing at 30 frames a second. If you're playing a game at 120 frames a second, it's refreshing at 120 frames a second. If like 2 milliseconds later it drops itself down to 118 frames a second, then your monitor's doing 118 frames a second.
Ooh, man.
I
That's
think,
the idea.
Yeah, I think it's going to be really great for people who do mod PCs or come up with their own contraptions that display information like onto a monitor or a television, because you do get to make that variable faster with different components and other things. Whereas your PS4 and all that, you probably won't see a whole lot, but it is cool nonetheless.
Well, so sync standards were, I think, wasn't OpenSync or FreeSync was something that was talked about for the PlayStation, wasn't it?
The newer model, I
Yes, the
believe, is
PS5.
being talked about. Yeah. So.
Yes, because the AMD cards support FreeSync, and AMD's always been part of FreeSync. But there are TVs now in preparation for this that are coming out with FreeSync and G-Sync enabled.
It's almost like 2020 is like the crux where all of it comes together.
It seems like that way with games lately. So.
Yeah, except for when delays happen. Moving on, it looks like Hisense has announced their new ULED TV. And so, did you get the chance to look into this?
I did not.
Okay, so this is the article I was hoping you would read because I set this up a week ago, but that's fine. It is looking like they are coming
Yeah,
up with a
Mark.
newer technology
said
that
OLED.
is Ultra LED.
I thought it said
so they're
OLED.
quantum dot panels that brings the set peak brightness to 1,000 nits.
Wow.
Whoa.
Yeah, and so this actually looked really cool. And the cool thing about this is the fact that they're only charging like $600 to $400 for the like. They're not
That's
trying to charge a whole
unheard
lot.
of for a new type of display.
Isn't a normal
I-
display
I-
like
I- I-
100 nits?
So 65 inch is going to be $699 to $999, or 55 to
That's-
65. Yeah,
That's still a fantastic price.
Absolutely.
For new tech. Well, okay, I say new tech. Quantum dot's been around for a little while. But if they're bringing it out to the point that they're finally, I guess, able to chug enough power through these things, through these diodes to produce that much power, that's fantastic.
yeah. What's even better is this new TV. It is finally uses a true 120 hertz panel. So I mean, it sounds like they're really hitting a lot of cool stuff here. And again, like you're talking about price point wise, for something of this kind of tech, like you're displaying to the masses, you're giving to the masses.
So being it that bright, couldn't that be a bad thing?
Well, it just allows that level of brightness. So you can actually the
Like-
beauty of it is like you can when you have bright flashes, they're gonna pop more.
Right. So
Wow.
okay. So
the dimness you'll notice more because of the lack of it.
So I thought I'd heard of ULED before, but like I'd never heard of it referred to, I guess, in the sense of quantum dot. But ULED essentially is called, or also known as micro LED or MLED, is basically the idea of taking an LED and making it this like extremely small size. And there's benefits that come with that. First off, LED televisions, anyway, where the pixels themselves are lit up by the LEDs, means that you can turn on and off pixels individually, which is where you get organic LED or OLED, that actually turn on by the individual pieces. So micro LEDs or ULED panels use really, really tiny LEDs like that as a different form of OLED, which, by the way, one of the biggest problems with OLED is burn-in on screens, where the same image over and over again will actually burn a line or something like that in there. This helps prevent a lot of that. But the idea of it being so small, too, means that you can cram more of them into a small space, meaning that you can get higher resolutions out of really, really tiny screens. Like for example, this could be the future for VR.
Yeah,
where
absolutely.
the current problem is resolution, where your eyes are literally so close to the screens that you actually can see some of the lines
Yeah.
between the pixels. So micro LEDs, or ULEDs in this case, would be great to cram into that kind of thing, because you could pull like full 4K or 8K resolutions, that kind of thing, depending on how smart you get them, for each of your eyes, which would be fantastic for all of that.
See, it's
I
funny
sent
because I
mine
always
to
thought there was
college.
something wrong with
But-
my eyes when I put my headset on. I was like, oh god.
But the other benefit you get here too is that the smaller the LEDs are, like LEDs being really tiny diodes as opposed to like full size lights like we use in here, or even like regular bulbs, that kind of thing. There's always a dim out rate on them that slows things down. Well, you can increase your contrast rates, you can increase your refresh rates, and everything else like that when the LEDs are really small, because the material doesn't have to have glow out that's really noticeable. It's just on and off, on and off,
Yeah.
on and off. Most LEDs are already like that anyway, but if you can even make that faster, and put it into a panel, then suddenly you've got a display.
Yeah, it definitely seems like they're trying to make a name for themselves. Hisense, it has been around for a while, but they're really
Yeah,
not.
I'd never heard of Hisense as like a leading like
Exactly.
Samsung. I would have expected for this.
Exactly, yeah. And the fact that they're
LG.
actually making a play, I think, is really interesting because Hisense would be considered, in my opinion, a B-tier television. But it seems like they're trying to come up in the world. And I'm
It was
all
the
about
first
it.
time I ever heard of them.
Oh, there you go.
So
There you go.
I looked at that and I was like, "Is that sold in America?"
Some would say that I go into Best Buy every now and then and do a little bit of nothing but looking around at Hisense still. But
No, the thing is, I did do that and I still never saw one.
it's not like exclusively Hisense. I guess that was a little
You
misleading.
read my mind.
Television in general. I got your back, dog. When there's innovation in technology, there's also blasphemy in technology.
Of course.
And Samsungcero TV is just that. The Cero TV is a television that you can take and flip like a smartphone. So you can watch all those YouTube smartphone videos and have it in the perfect resolution. Isn't that what we want?
It's pointless.
No.
It's the dumbest thing on the planet. I
I would rather use like the Facebook communicator thing,
yeah.
like which is in a portrait fashion. I'd rather use that instead.
I think it's just as useless as a $60,000 roll-up television screen.
We'll get to that in a second. I believe what was funny about it is that I imagine like some Samsung executives like, we're losing the little kids. They're all on their phones. How can we get them? Sir, I've got an idea. Let's flip the TV. You're a genius. We're gonna give
him a raise.
Give him a raise. I was gonna use John, but like Samsung's a Korean company, right? So I don't think they have a John there. Are they Korean?
I think they're Japanese.
Japanese, regardless. Kirito. Give Kirito a raise. That's a Japanese name.
Kirito.
Yeah, that's a Japanese name.
It is.
Thank you.
Sure.
Yeah.
And the
Sword
house
Art
I looked
Online
at-
says so.
In the house I looked at today, they had statues of Sword Art Online.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That's cool.
It was weird. It was like doppelgangers of my wife and I in the house. I'll talk about
Yeah, I was
it
about
another
to say, it's the reason why it attracted you, huh?
No. Moving on, it looks like LG is unveiling a new rollable TV. So this is a television screen that
This thing-
sits in a dock of sorts, right? It looks like a big wooden box, and then you hit a button and it comes up.
Or it could be hung
goes
from the
down.
ceiling.
Yeah, it can be hung. Yeah, but
well,
most of the display was from
They
the ground.
teased this last year though.
They did.
$60,000.
I believe it. I mean, that's when flexible panel tech was really, really expensive and still very, very new.
But my point is like, what's the real practicality of needing to do that? What is so bad about having your TV out that you need to roll it up in order for it to be out of the way?
I don't see any practical reason for
Unless
anybody
you have
who,
a 2-year-old.
who really cares to. Well, actually, I think that's terrible for a 2-year-old because they're just going to want to.
No, that's what I mean. You can roll it up so that way they can't touch it.
Honestly, a fixed television mounted high out of their reach is much better.
Yeah.
But no, as far as that goes, it's just the aesthetic. That's really it.
To me, this is people who have tons of money,
That's
who
a
have very
car.
little space. Like you said, you hang it from the ceiling above your fireplace. If you want to fire, you roll it up. You got you there.
No, I can see that being a thing. Like if you were going to have like an area that is used for multiple things and it needs to go down so it could be moved on a roller cart or whatever out of the way. But like at that point in time, it's like Jesus.
Could you purchase a screen and have a projector on it? Sure, but you have $60,000 to spend, my friend.
To be fair, the projector probably wouldn't be tremendously cheaper to get something decent quality for that.
I mean, they have some pretty decent projectors now that aren't that bad.
Laser projectors the only way that you can get anything close to the same color reproduction of a television, and you still have to be in a dark room for it to work correctly. Anyway, and they will still cost you in the $20,000 to $30,000 range.
Believe
It's
you're
not
correct.
$60,000.
No,
I can buy 2 of those projectors.
Correct. Also, you were correct the first time. It's reproduction.
Anywho,
I think this could
He's
be...
feisty today, guys.
Zing. I do believe this could have some merit and uses. We just discussed 2 examples, but I agree the price point is silly. Now, CES is also known for just bringing this stuff out to show off, right?
Yeah.
These are
yeah,
research
100%.
projects. This is
lot of
Samsung coming.
prototypes.
Look what we got coming.
like you're
next."
probably gonna have like no, you'll probably have no consumers buy it, and then they'll realize, okay, it's a terrible idea. Let's not do this.
Yeah. The last little bit of television news we have here is that Samsung has also unveiled their first bezel-free 8K television. So this will be just a little flat screen. Can't see any of the sides of it. Hope you're excited about it.
Actually,
Yeah,
I didn't see
baby.
how does that like? Does it just have back mounts or anything? Like
Yes,
that?
it has back mounts on a stand that goes.
Because I saw the bezel-less part, but like I didn't see how it was mounted. Because like the one thing I did, like LG put out a television last year, I think. MKBHD has it in his studio, and it is a wall mount, flush, very thin, like a 3mm bezel or something absurd, that kind of thing. But you literally put magnet points on the wall, and then you stick it
Yeah.
to those magnet points, and it stays there.
That's awesome.
Like, I like that idea because it's super flush. It's out of the way. You have a ribbon cable that you put into the wall, literally, to run down, that kind of thing. I mean, it looks super clean, that kind of thing, but it's still up on the wall. You can put, and the idea is it's an organic LED too, so you can use it as a picture frame or something like that. So this, if it's bezel-less, would be great to have like as a pictureless or a bezel-less picture, basically, that you put up or something like that in the meantime on your wall instead of having this dark spot, basically.
I actually don't mind. Well, I'm also very weird. Like I don't care about bezels on phones or screens. Like I've grown up around them. They don't bother me to any degree.
I have the Razor. Okay.
Bezels on. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I know you can't have a bezel on there.
No. They're actually I approve of bezels on phones.
Yeah, I think it gives you definitive space for where you're manipulating.
Where your hand goes. Yep.
Yeah. But what I think is interesting with this is that Microsoft had their Project Hollow, which was the projector screen behind the television, right? Yeah. And so the whole point of this is supposed to immerse your entire room into whatever game you're playing. The problem with that is that you have a bezel around your television, which always acts as this barrier around it. This screen would be perfect for that, where you could actually expand out whatever. And it doesn't have to be for games. Like you could literally, you're watching Discovery Channel and just boom, you got this cool space around you. There's a focus on the center of the screen, but you still have other areas where it feels like the entire wall. Could be cool. I do think there's an interesting use here.
Yeah.
May not be my personal preference, but cool nonetheless.
I mean, I think an interesting piece for this, just my own like brainstorming here, if you wanted to go for some immersion, that kind of thing at a basic level without requiring multiple screens or projectors to do all that stuff, is if it's bezel-less and you can mount it on the wall flush like that, pop some LEDs in the side and just run some color that matches whatever color's on the edges of the screen like that. And then it just sort of immerses the edges of the wall around it, essentially. That's true. In a continuous fashion.
I like it. I like it a lot.
They need to do it. Patented. You heard it here first.
Yeah, heard it here first. We are
It's
strange.
Not patented.
It's patented. No. That's
Strange
how you patent
innovators.
stuff. We just mailed it to her, so it's called a self-patent.
Right.
The U.S. law has no problems with that. We'll be fine. Moving on.
You need to forge some documents. You didn't hear that.
Yeah, time for us to discuss
I invented Google.
a little bit of computer technology. So this is where we're getting to the real nerdy shit. Thank you. Looks like Intel has finally debuted their 10 nanometer processors.
Ooh, they're only like 2 years behind.
I know, right? But hey, we have to talk about it, right? I mean, they're catching up. We talked about this previously.
I still wouldn't invest in any Intel stock.
I mean, I wouldn't either.
This podcast does not give any opinions and any investment advice and all that stuff. I just got to give that disclaimer.
Yeah.
I don't want to get sued by the FTC.
But the thing is that Intel is used in a lot more products, correct?
No.
I thought they had like the mainstream lower end products.
They were the mainstream for high end products and then cheap end for laptops, that kind of thing, because they were sort of this industry standard as far as like desktop devices are concerned. But think about this. How many consoles are purchased between Xbox and PlayStation, and AMD owns both markets?
Correct. Yeah, and they have for quite some time now.
Yeah. And we'll get into the other topic too, where AMD is starting to take other markets as well. But AMD beat everyone to the beat everyone else except for Qualcomm with Snapdragon to the 7 nanometer market. So why would you even go with an Intel where it consumes more power, generates more heat, can't get the clock speeds that AMD does? The only thing that they've got going for them is they do have better chip architecture. So once they get back into 7 nanometer, sure, they will probably be back in there. But AMD's already had some tricks that they pulled out of their sleeve that's really
Speaking of AMD,
done well. So
they announced their 7 nanometer processors for laptops.
Yep. Going back to what I was talking about, AMD's finally expanding themselves in other markets, and now that they're starting to take a very big stronghold in the server market, the workstation PC market, the desktop PC market, and gaming market included, now laptops are going to be sort of the next frontier of like, hey, by the way, we offer better chips. You don't have to do as much whenever it comes to cooling performance. You don't have to do as much whenever it comes to power delivery, which means longer battery life for your laptop. Kind of means better all around. So
they're pretty much covering the market in general.
Yeah.
And so the reason that this 7 nanometer is important is because that's when the electrons start jumping around 4 nanometers, and they're getting down to the nitty gritty. Like there's not going to be too much innovation past with silicon based chips, right?
Right. So the best way I can describe this, like
connections.
the nanometer size is the size of the transistor. The transistor is essentially an on-off switch, essentially, that can be turned on and off from a different source. Once you come down to 4 nanometers, that's where you hit the theoretical limit. That would, like, we haven't really been able to produce anything that small to be able to test it at a physical level.
Just use a bunch of electrons.
Yeah, just by hand.
Yeah. To guide other electrons and turn other things on and off. Now,
correct.
Once you get past 4 nanometers, apparently electrons can actually jump past the transistor switch without having any kind of other like input going on there. That
Yeah,
kind of
yeah.
thing. Like it could be turned off, for example, and the electron will still jump from one side to the other. So the idea is at 7 nanometers, we're approaching that theoretical limit. And once you get to the next step, but the idea is once you get a smaller size like that, requires less electrons to turn it on or off, requires less electrons to pass through it, that kind of thing, or makes it less difficult to pass through.
So even though it's a theoretical limit, it may not require the same level of power. It may actually work. We really don't know until we get there.
Right. And the idea is once we get down farther and farther, we're starting to hit the we're starting to get the law of diminishing returns as far as like power consumption and heat and all that stuff. Just because like we're finally tailing off towards the end of where we can really go here. But
I know exactly how that is, and I'll put it on a bigger scale. It's a coffee machine, and the relay is actually before the power on-off switch. So when I put my hand on the relay, thinking that the switch was off and there was depowered.
negative.
Yeah. So it just kind of shocked you anyway.
Yeah. But
Pretty much how it worked.
yep.
It was fun.
And that's
sounds
why
like fun.
he is the way he is.
No, but this is exciting. I'm glad to see this move into laptops. I'm glad to see lower heat output. I'm glad to see longer battery lives out of smaller laptops. That'd be great.
Well, the only thing I can think about
Is the cost going to go up substantially, I'm assuming? Or no?
Actually, AMD has been releasing their processors on average for cheaper than Intel by far.
Wow.
But that's also because Intel has put hikes on there because they were technically a monopoly for a while.
Yeah, well, and what's good about the fact that AMD is being competitive and Intel is struggling is the fact that they can no longer hold that monopoly, and they're going to have to get competitive themselves. Like the
Which is
computer
good for
market,
us.
yeah,
Yep.
the computer market right now is actually in a really good spot. with all this
Competition is
stuff.
very good.
Yeah.
No, competition is terrible for an economy.
Yeah, stop, don't do it.
Consumers and all that stuff.
What's really good right
Dummies.
here is speaking of AMD and being good for consumers, they just announced the RX 5600 XT, which is going to be a nice 1080 like graphics card, right?
Yeah.
The whole goal is not to be a 4K, but there's some older graphics cards you made to replace them. They're looking at a $280 price point, and it's going to be right up there. Ultra 1080p is what they're calling it.
For
I
people
mean,
like me
that's
who
great
are
if,
okay with it.
if they scaled it specifically for a lower resolution, or I guess it's still technically HD, but HD resolution, higher frame rate, that kind of thing, as opposed to scaling it for handling, I guess, a variety of scenarios of like multiple monitors and 4K and 1440p and possibly 8K and then all that stuff, and then high refresh rates on top of it.
Yeah.
I mean, realistically, the scaling for that is minimal. You know, like these processors are pretty general use, but lower end graphics cards, I'll be honest, don't do very well in a market.
No.
Okay. I do find this interesting because it's also coming to mobile. Like, obviously not this
Mobile's a
specific
good
card,
place.
but like the series itself will be.
Mobile's a good place to have it. Like, so for example, my personal laptop has a 1050 Ti.
Okay.
Which, you know, there's the 1050, the 1060, 1070, 1080.
Yeah.
And then there's TIs of almost everything else in between.
And the goal of this is to essentially replace the 1060 because it's a 10% boost over that.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's neat. Yeah.
For the price point, it is.
Right, and actually, if they can bring it into a mobile market pretty well, and it has a decent performance boost for low power costs the same way because they're using the 7 nanometer architecture, that kind of thing. Because I don't even think Nvidia stepped into that yet. Come to think of it, but regardless, low power, high graphics processing performance, and for a laptop, that kind of thing, you can get great frame rates out of a 1080p display. Which, by the way, 4K is not really a good thing for laptops.
Yeah.
I can tell you firsthand, 4K is not necessary for your laptop. Go 1080p. Heed my warning.
So why is
regret
that?
Screen size, mostly.
Yeah.
So you can fit 4K into a lot of things, but unless you're going 4K across the board all the time, and keeping it at that scaling resolution with a monitor big enough to really handle 4K, it's kind of pointless because your UI scaling has to be so big to accommodate for that anyway, which makes it look like a 1080p display. You just get slightly better looking icons.
Yeah.
That's really it.
It's the same reason why, for the time being, 4K on a phone is like, okay.
Oh yeah. Plus, it
Whatever.
costs way too much in battery life to do that,
Yeah.
that kind of thing.
Yeah.
1440p has been the sort of in between standard for phones at this
Why
point.
does everybody keep talking about 8K when we don't even have anything that pushes 8K?
We do.
What?
So the new Apple XDR display pushes 8K. Dell has a monitor that pushes 8K, and some of the graphics cards have upgraded firmware to support 2 display links to push 8K out of a single monitor.
Okay. As long as we got shit to use it with, awesome. I'm all about it now.
But for productivity nerds, like I'll reference Marquez Brownlee again, MKBHD. Anyway, he has an iMac Pro or a new Mac Pro, the new
Yeah.
$30,000 one.
Yeah, the one that literally have to spend thousands of dollars on the wheels.
And each monitor is $1,000 piece. and he has two of them, two 8K monitors.
Must
But-
be nice to be rolling.
Yeah, but he uses it for video editing and all that stuff. It's really nice. But
Yeah. On the other end of the spectrum is the AMD Ryzen Threadripper 3990X.
Sounds like a horror movie. Blade.
64 core CPU.
So this has been rumored. The 3950X has been rumored as well, just because that's the same thing that happened with the 2 series. This blows everything out of the water. You're talking 128 threads
Yeah.
for processing performance,
I read
64
that and I was
cores.
like, I don't think I've ever read anything that high.
The server processors that AMD makes don't have this many cores in some senses on the low end.
So many cores.
But by the same token, these are also geared for desktop performance use as opposed to the the EPYC processors for server.
What's astounding to me is that it's not only been announced, it's ready. It's out February 7th.
Yep.
So,
Oh,
like,
wow.
They're
The,
ready.
the rumor's been floating around for a little while now.
Yeah, and
Because they had the 39 or no, that is
So what's the
is that
market they're
30
trying
that's a
to hit?
3990
Is that the at-home market or?
workstation.
Okay.
So friend of ours, tall dude.
yeah.
The ginger with the glasses.
Yes, he
The freak.
he had the last generation 2950 or 2990X. Which was a Threadripper, and he used it for Bitcoin mining at the time because that was still kind of a
Yeah, I
big thing at
remember
that
that.
point.
Yeah.
They're really good at that kind of thing because they have a lot of cores, a decent amount of processing performance, that kind of thing. And you can get pretty good numbers out of them.
And it's a cool name. Threadripper.
Yeah, that was kind of the idea.
Yeah.
Like,
like
Epic is
WWE level.
EPYC. Epic.
Yeah. What I find interesting here is that they're charging for this about $4,000, right? So compared to Intel, which has the Xeon 8280s, which cost $20,000, this has 30% better performance.
Yeah. They have their W line or whatever. Most of Intel has their W line that comes in it for workstation processors, Xeons anyway. That Xeon 8000 series, they're pretty pricey for what they are, and they don't give you performance benefit over top of what the Ryzen does. Like, it just doesn't make sense to go with an Intel chip anymore.
Like, it is just
Like,
Wow.
even with
astounding.
the old Ryzens were still a good bang for the buck for multi-threaded scenarios, that kind of thing, for like 3D rendering, modeling, that kind of stuff. Still a better option to go with. But Intel owned it for almost the rest of the workstation market of doing like high power video rendering or work with some 3D modeling and CAD software, that kind of thing, where you'd have to do like simulations and whatnot. But now, are you kidding
yeah.
me?
Oh,
Like,
that's nuts. Yeah.
What?
Absolutely nuts.
kidding
I mean, especially when we're talking about performance to price ratio, like there's absolutely no reason why.
clock speed and core count are way too high in conjunction with each other for the Intel to even make sense anymore.
Yeah, I agree.
No deal.
No deal. This one could have fit under television, but is primarily aimed at computers. So I put it in here. Asus and Nvidia, I believe. I got my notes right here. Yep, Nvidia both announced that they have 360 hertz gaming monitors coming
Yeah,
out.
Which is insane.
We'd glanced on this last time, but
We did, but I did want to talk about it
Yeah,
because
yeah.
you, of all people, would know what this would mean for PC gaming.
I have my TV does 60 hertz refresh rate.
Correct. Yeah.
So it depends on
Like-
what you're playing. So 120 hertz or 144 hertz is sort of the high end now,
Yep.
Yeah.
currently. 360 would be unheard of as far as performance. And the thing is that there gets to be a certain point where law of diminishing returns sort of comes into play here. Of like, here we are at 144. This is probably about where 360 is. Of like, it's a very little benefit over top of like 250.
Do you think this could be possible future proofing?
Yes.
Yeah.
And if NVIDIA, for example, just releases, let's say, a firmware update to G-Sync-enabled graphics cards that says we support up to 360 megahertz now, which is 144 has kind of been the cap
Yeah.
up to this point, because it may be higher than that. It may have gotten higher
I
since
think
last time I saw it, but-
144 would be the standard, I believe.
Right,
Yeah.
because like the monitor I've got downstairs is 144 hertz capable, that kind of thing. But that's also the high end of it. Is like, why would you need to push much more than that? But 360 would get you to the point of almost buttery smooth, to the point that you wouldn't be able to distinguish it from real life.
Yeah. I was about to say, now it's going to be like a box and something's going to come out of the box
like-
and hit you.
Let me
already
see
have
my
a-
girl Tifa jumping around.
People already have trouble distinguishing between 90
made
and
this for
120
porn.
hertz.
Porn video games specifically.
People already have trouble distinguishing sometimes between 90 and 120 hertz.
Yeah.
And then going from 120 hertz to 200 hertz, like it's there, but it's somewhat negligible. You can for the most part pick it out, but I can't imagine going from 200 to 360 that like it's going to be that much more of a difference. But
The bell curve dips and then it's like,
the other problem is like there's so few games that you could play that would support this kind of this kind of frame rate. Like you're talking playing like Nvidia released a thing a while back when the 9 series cards came out that allowed you to scale up a game on its resolution so high that it could downsample it and improve the quality of an old game very well.
Okay.
But by the other side of that, it could also increase the processing power, increase the clock speed essentially, or the output of the card essentially to get you more frames on that game as well. So you could play an old game at 200 frames a second, that kind of thing.
Final Fantasy 9.
CSGO would be the only competitive game I could see that could probably push 360 frames a second out of a modern card geared towards like a 1660 or something like that.
You think Team Fortress wouldn't be able to?
It's
Team Fortress 2?
One, it's fallen off the scene. Two, yes, it could.
Okay, but I'm saying like you're talking about the possibility. We're not necessarily talking about.
I think from a graphics perspective, I think Team Fortress 2 still has more of a load on the graphics card than CSGO does to some extent.
Really?
Yes. Because
Interesting.
it's very much basic textures. Maybe not after the recent update, just because they did upgrade the textures quite a bit, improve the graphics quality to match, with the times, that kind of thing. But
I would argue the original CS, sure, but CSGO is the updated variation of that, right?
People still
to
play
some extent,
Counter-Strike?
yeah, Counter-Strike, yeah. Actually,
Only PC nerds.
Actually, it was only like the second largest tournament that they were running, or third largest tournament that they were running at DreamHack when we went.
Yeah. What were
back
they
in
giving
December.
away? Free Excel access. Oh, get your spreadsheets.
I was like, you said Excel, right?
I did a check.
It said it's like Axel
It's
access,
fine.
and I was
Don't
like,
worry about
what?
it. It's been a long day. I'm very tired.
I just don't see too many personal uses for this. But it does mean that other monitor companies can start releasing higher refresh rate monitors.
Yeah.
But if it's G-Sync, you're still not going to see that.
Yeah.
360
Because
hertz
it's
out of it.
going with whatever.
But this is sort of future proofing of like, okay, we got to this point. We don't have to touch it for like a decade now.
Exactly. Yeah. We're good. We'll be
It's
back
like we're
later.
not going to have to worry about innovating at this point.
Suddenly, you're going to have to wait for like so much better graphics cards to come out, that kind of thing, where Overwatch 10 years from now, even though it's already a like 5-year-old game, can suddenly play on new graphics cards at 360 frames a second, and there you go.
We're going to
Personally-
be at the PS9 and everything's got to be up-res.
I can't
It'll
wait
be
till
PS6 by that point.
Yeah.
I can't wait till next year when Asus is like, we've got 540 hertz. You're like, what are you doing? Stop! That's not necessary. Moving on, Lenovo has 2 innovations they released for their various laptops this year. The foldable ThinkPad. So, of course, we have used a ThinkPad here on numerous occasions. This would have a foldable screen, so it folds out to a large tablet.
No, you don't have one of those? With all that money you haven't bought one yet?
Oh my God, shut up.
Yes! I fit it in.
He is like Scrooge McDuck after this. He just goes, dives in the money. Which you and I
Except
just...
that's not how that works. It's just whang right in the face of.
Yeah, there's no
Coins,
sinking in that.
I think there's wang. So, we discussed this before we started shooting the show, which is it's a cool concept, but with no physical keypad, like, what's the point? Because I can't imagine using
It says
this.
there's an auxiliary keypad that you could use, right?
Of course, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I mean you can always use a plug-in keyboard or something like that. That's fine. I don't know.
Other than
See-
for portability, I don't understand.
For content consumption, I get it.
Yeah.
You can scroll through everything like it's a big old tablet, basically. That kind of thing. Neat idea. I see survivability of a folding screen in this scenario much easier because it
Yeah.
is such a large device that the bend doesn't have to be super tiny like the Galaxy Fold or anything like that. But I think getting
smaller presentations too. People tend to work in smaller, like 4 or 5 man groups. You could use that for a presentation in a group of people to having to use a giant TV if you don't need to,
So
and
I-
do it ad hoc.
I see this more for artists.
I was going to say, from an art perspective, I think this is wonderful.
Right, of having like, okay, so you have a full screen drawing app where like, let's say your palette's in front of you and you're drawing down on the bottom, like setting it down to the table and you're drawing down here, and then you can just go dink and then you just start drawing with a different color or something
Yeah.
like that. I could see that.
Or even if you, similar to the presentation angle, but like, hey, like, I want to use a variation of AutoCAD, right? Where I've built this 3D model for architecture. Hey, I'm showing this to you. Oh, well, let me see that for a second. You take the pad and you can make adjustments and stuff and then hand
Yeah.
it back. It is a glorified iPad, but it also has the capability of
Right. Well,
being an
it's
actual
Windows.
laptop.
It's still
Yeah.
running
Yeah.
Windows, yeah. So, but the only problem is from like half the reason I bought this machine right here is because I enjoy the keyboard on it.
Yep.
Like legitimately, I was back and forth between this and the Dell 15-inch XPS because the two of them are roughly the same for all intents and purposes, but that one has a much better feeling keyboard.
Yeah.
The problem is the keyboard on this is literally going to be you just tapping a hard edge of a screen, which
Agreed.
like under small scenarios of like you're barely posting something to Twitter or
Or
Facebook.
web searches or something crazy.
cool. Like, that's not a big deal. But for like a software developer, I can't use that. For people who write business documents, can't use that.
Well,
Like,
in this, I would assume that you would be able to use overlays, so you could basically use it like a 2-screen system, and you can also hook it up to where you could use it as a second screen in any instance at which you
I
want.
don't think so.
I could see that being a neat idea from like turn it sideways, set it
Agreed.
down, and then put a keyboard in front of you.
But I don't think that's the capability of this specific model.
I could have swore I read that it was able to be used as a not like as like you could hook it up with another monitor and have 2 monitors essentially.
Oh yeah, I could do that with most any laptop at that point. But
Well, yeah, but I mean, it still has that function to where you could basically, you take it's not a whole lot of stuff on your desk. Like
Yeah.
you could still like have your keyboard, hook it up as a second monitor, so it's not laying on your desk or anything else like that.
Yeah.
Helps with workspace, I guess.
Yeah.
Clutter.
$2,500.
It's not too
actually,
bad.
that's not terrible for a
Yeah,
laptop.
I mean,
what
you look
it
at
is,
a
yeah.
you look at a MacBook and you're spending about the same.
You can,
You'll spend a lot more than that.
you can.
I mean, you can, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
But I mean,
100%.
you and
Spec
I,
for spec, that's more
You and I
expensive.
recently had the conversation about phone keypads and how like the way we moved away
Yeah.
from a QWERTY keyboard requires you to now pay attention and look at what you're doing, which
Yep.
is exactly why you're saying like as someone who types all day long, this is not conducive to what I need to do because
Yeah.
what I'm looking at is where my hands are going
Yep.
up and down like this over and over again.
And that's
The
not
only-
going
the
to
only-
be
well, so the
comfortable.
only like so for, I mean like
It hurts my neck thinking about it.
I like you and I spend enough time in front of a keyboard. I would think every day that to some extent it's become second nature to
I
type on
do
a
too.
physical
I
QWERTY
just
keyboard.
don't do the same things you do.
But the benefit that's come from that is because I understand the layout of the keyboard. Swipe has become sort of a second nature thing to me now too. Whenever it comes to my phone, I can sort of just bounce around the keyboard and I can 9 times out of 10 get it right. So I mean, you could use that, I guess, in this scenario of like if you want to get better from a typing perspective for something.
I
cool.
think if you could have a capability where there's rumble or even like raising when you're moving across so you can feel because I do believe that tactile nature of it is really what helps you translate.
to some extent, yeah.
Yeah.
Like I mean, definitely feeling the ridges on the F and J keys, for example. That
Yeah.
I mean, that would keep me centered where it is, that kind of thing. And especially in our scenario where, like, I know for me, like, I move back and forth between the numpad,
All the
other keys moving back and forth all the time. So for me, it's definitely a thing of, like, feel. So I probably wouldn't enjoy this as much. I don't have an artistic reason to
Yeah.
have it, that kind of thing.
If I'm doing work on a computer, I need to feel the keys.
Yeah.
I have 0 1. Like my mom had the oversized Apple tablet thing.
Yeah, the iPad.
And I'm
Pro
looking at that, and I'm like, I
back-
could not
yeah.
work with that at all. I would have to have an auxiliary keyboard.
Yeah,
There's no
Good
way.
old iPod Touch.
I am very interested to see how this reacts from
Yeah,
a
pretty much.
consumer standpoint because of the very reasons we're talking about. Like, this is very cool. It is totally not for me. I want to see how many people actually grab this. What industries take it in.
Yeah,
like,
I want
where
to
it
see
goes.
how they
Yeah.
develop that. Yeah.
I think this being, I see this being more of a niche product.
Okay.
So like
Yeah.
ThinkPad, Lenovo already makes the ThinkPad Yoga, which is literally a 360 hinge laptop. So you can turn it inside out and you can make it into a tablet, which would be great for artists, but you also get your keyboard out of it, that kind of thing.
See, like
So-
as this item, I would like it as what we discussed earlier, what we would kind of like with the phone to become a tablet in the sense, but where I could use it as a tablet or I could use it as a computer if I need to.
Yeah.
Because I don't do, like me personally, I don't do a whole lot of, nerd work. But when I need to use it as a laptop, I
Proud
have
of
the
it.
power that I need, and it's still like, will do what I
mean,
want it
like
to, and I'm fine.
If it had an inversion hinge, cool.
Yeah.
I'm down with that. Like you can turn it all the way inside out, that kind of thing. Granted, the stretching of the screen becomes a little bit of a problem there,
Yeah.
but if you can go full inversion on it,
If
that kind
you
of thing,
have
and then
stretched the
clamp it
membrane
back,
over and over again, you realize it's not that painful.
it's painful to look at.
Yeah.
We're going to move through these last little bits of PC rather quickly. They also announced the first 5G laptop. This is cool. 5G.
Yeah.
Yay. The Origin PC has announced their next variation of it. So Origin PC is a little
It
company.
looks hot.
They originally announced the last year as a concept. They put together a fully spec'd out gaming PC, a Switch, an Xbox One, and a PS4, all in one box that you could just toggle between.
Yep.
That was freaking awesome.
It is cool. This year, it is much more reasonable, and they're selling it. This is not a concept anymore. It is a gaming PC along with a console of your choice. So
wanna
I
know
think
what
that's great from
happened
a
to
streaming
that.
perspective.
I agree 100%.
Yeah.
Video input card, small little jumper, and then an output output cable, done.
you're able to go. And anybody who has the money who's going to buy all this anyways, and you know like a location you're putting it in, why not? It's a nice box. It looks great.
It looks hot.
Yeah.
I mean, if they can cram it into a small enough case, for example, that's your all-in-one media center right in your right
100%.
in your media center.
Wherever you put it, wherever you know, you can put it in your room, you can put it in your closet, you can put it in your bathroom. I don't care. Moving on, final.
That's the new thing. The bathroom streams. Didn't you hear?
I've already got
Dr.
enough-
Disrespect already started that trend.
Wow.
I got him. Razer has announced one of the coolest things I think I've seen for building PCs in a long time, and that is the Tomahawk.
Long time? Oh.
The Tomahawk is essentially a PC case that allows you to pull it out,
Dude, that is
hook
so
up your
cool.
graphics card, and not a CPU, but what's it called? An NPU? That sounds right.
No.
No.
What?
It's something
Well, no. So it's they're
An
co-
NUC is what
yeah,
it
yeah,
is.
NUC. Yeah.
A
A
NUC.
NUC. There we go.
So Intel has made NUCs for a little while now, which is where they have the partnership with Intel
Yeah.
on this. And the NUCs have traditionally been just like little tiny standalone boxes, sort of like the Steam box that you find, that kind of thing. It's like a little standalone device. It's got a minimal operating system on it, that kind of thing, small processor, you can play on it. The NUCs that they're generating now are bigger. They're cards, full-size cards that come with RAM, a processor, and a motherboard essentially integrated completely onto it. And it slots into a PCI Express slot inside this case thing, inside this Tomahawk case.
You literally, if this were the case, this is the handle. You pull it out, the innards come out. You're
Yeah.
able to modify
And
it,
it's-
and you slide it back in.
It's it's three things total
Yep.
that sit on this thing. Like, I guess 4 if you count the board. But there's a power supply, the NUC, and a graphics card.
Yep.
That's it. And the idea is that it's super easy to be like, I want to upgrade my processor. Pull that out, slot the new NUC in, and you've upgraded your processor. I want to upgrade my my graphics card. Slot it out, pull your graphics card, put it in, you're done.
I think there's a great niche here because there's the level of PC, and I'd argue like Raspberry Pi Arduino, right? Where there's a little bit of manipulation. You have to kind of know what you're doing. You really don't want to, like, there's some plug and play stuff, but mostly it is like you better understand what it is. And then there are people who are novices who really don't understand how this even starts. So having a middle ground here, I think this is a great idea. I really want to know what the sales numbers of something like this are because I do believe that there's a market for this.
I think there's a market for this. I just don't think it's as big as anything that they would probably really hope for.
Okay.
It would be
So-
cool to use in schools, in my opinion.
100%.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you've got schools. I totally agree with you on this,
mean,
by the way. It's much smoother.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The
best.
schools would be great for, computer science, like introductory courses, being like, hey, this is like kind of what we're looking at. You want to modify it a little bit, play with it a little bit. Cool. No big deal. If you fuck it up, I can fix it. No big deal.
Very cool.
I don't know.
PC guy who
makes his own
PC.
So that's the thing. From a
I mean, what's the difference between that and making your own
from an
PC?
amateur wanting to learn to be
A lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, quite a bit. Yeah. Yeah.
Surprise.
Yeah. No, I think the point is this is a stepping stone.
It is, and I like the idea that they want to give like flat beginners the ability to come in as amateurs. That kind of, I agree with that entirely. Amateurs that want to have like a no nonsense setup of like slot this in, slot it back out, and, whatever, that kind of thing. Cool, you're good to go. Suddenly you've upgraded an entire machine on it. My concern comes in when people have like other companies have to generate these NUCs to slot in there as upgrade pieces.
Yeah.
And you have to have a continued market to be able to get that rolling. And if there's not a big enough market for it, there's not going to be enough research.
But
into
when
it.
you guys like want to upgrade something, doesn't everything already have like its universal connection? How like when you're upgrading
So,
RAM or
Not everything's a universal connection necessarily. You do have to match up the numbers and the versions of what you're using to some extent. And you have to understand that. The hardest thing to match up usually is your motherboard or your processor because the socket type and the support of that processor on that motherboard needs to be paired.
Really, the motherboard needs to make sure that she is okay with whatever else because
whatever the child is bringing.
Gotta swaddle it. Yeah.
exactly.
Make sure we're right there.
RAM, on the other hand, is pretty universal. Of like,
I'm pretty good at RAM. Yeah.
there's DDR3 and there's DDR4. Nobody uses DDR3 anymore at this point, pretty much. So DDR4 is pretty much the standard.
I just bought DDR3.
Man, that sucks. It's
You're
not
out of
used
luck then.
anymore.
I didn't buy DDR3.
Sell it. You'll get nothing.
Sold.
But other than that, everything else.
For the piece of bread on the table.
There's no bread.
Other than that, everything else sits on a PCI Express standard or USB standard. And
Yeah.
those are pretty standard. Pretty standard. But
So basically, this was your kind of show.
We're not even close to done yet.
I
That's why we
know.
have to hurry up.
consumer electronics, I'm back.
Yeah, but I do. again, we'll see what happens. I'll be curious this time next year, see if there's anything innovating, if their sales numbers, anything along those lines.
I'm calling a flop.
Okay.
No, yeah.
You
I'm
heard
calling
it.
a flop.
You
I
called
mean,
a
I
flop.
could totally see. I
We
could
give
totally
this-
understand why you say that.
I see a
though.
small
the
market.
dispatcher.
I see a small market
seal
for this.
of disapproval.
Oh snap! Look at that thing. It's ugly.
Hopefully, you put something on screen. That'd be cool.
Yeah.
Moving on to our gaming section, which surprisingly enough, there's that gaming section. CES is actually where E3 originated from,
Yeah.
but most gaming platforms moved away from CES because they had E3.
That makes sense. Consumer electronics show versus
correct.
the electronic entertainment.
So Alienware
Position.
announced or showed off a prototype. This is not a working thing yet to be sold, but a prototype of a handheld PC gaming device that looks very familiar to Nintendo
It's a
fans.
Switch that looks like an alien.
It is a Switch that has, instead of the controllers coming straight down, they slant out. It is running a custom version of their various OS. It is a cool concept, but much like the Snatch Z, which is a Kickstarter Steam machine that's a handheld machine, I think it totally misses the point of why a lot of people get into PC gaming, which is you are buying an arbitrary device that cannot be upgraded, modded, changed. You're stuck with whatever the specs of that thing are, which can be good.
Yeah.
If you're trying to get into Nintendo's market, that makes sense.
No, it doesn't.
It makes sense.
Nintendo owns that market for a reason.
But here's the thing: if they're selling that, let's say $600, which is twice the price of the Switch on average, but the game sales that you get off of Steam and everything else, you would make the money up in the back end.
Yeah, I would almost, I would arguably say that you have a bigger game
consoles work
library
now.
for low fidelity, easy to play games, that kind of
Yes.
thing for handheld or for controllers, that kind of thing is much more broad on Steam. That kind of thing for this kind of market.
They even have literally the same
Oh, it's 100%. It's
up for the freaking controllers.
I was like, this is copyright infringement.
Yeah.
It's
I'm borderline. I was like, how have you not been if you put this to market, you will be sued.
I agree with what you're saying, but I also agree with you. I don't think this can I don't think it can feasibly go anywhere until they actually get a foot in the door and prove to people who are not PC gamers that this is worth diving into.
It seems like something that would be very along the lines of the PS Vita, where they start something with a really good intention and a lot of possibilities, and they don't really know how to handle it, and then they poop on it.
I could see this going well for somebody actually from my perspective or Dylan's perspective, that kind of thing of we're PC gamers. I don't really play on console, but if I wanted to continue playing Stardew Valley
On the
or
go,
some
yeah.
or some of the other 2D based games like that I know I enjoy on.
But there are
Steam,
already
then I
consoles
could
out there
play
ready
them
to
on
do that.
But here would be the key
yeah.
thing is the ecosystem. If
Yeah,
you
that's
already
true.
own those games and you can run it and you have a save file and achievements and all that stuff,
Well,
I
again,
do
if
think there's something
if
there.
you're able to do basically a remote play system from your PC, then technically you wouldn't have to worry about that.
Actually, yeah, if you have a decent enough connection, you could just do Steam Remote Play.
But here's the problem is that you need a decent enough connection. Whereas if you're on a plane, you could take your Alienware handheld.
Well, I'm sure
and
there would
play.
be limitations where you could have and games that would be compatible,
I mean,
downloaded, and everything
yeah,
else.
yeah.
If it's capable of a SIM card or something like that, or I could just tether off my phone or something like that, cool.
And
or
nowadays
even
there's
just,
even
hey, I'm going to download the game in the save file. Now I have access to it wherever I am.
and there are
Yeah,
just certain
if
things
it's
you
a single
can't
player, yes.
I can't take my PS4 on a plane. Oh, does it mean I shouldn't buy a PS4? No, it just means that I take my Switch on the plane. And if it's not conducive to plane rides, then that's what it is. You just have to understand its limitations.
But I'm saying there's a market for people who are like Mark, who have already bought into this ecosystem and can
Granted,
take it with
I
them.
think it would be really cool to do that, but I without that remote tether, I don't see how it could be without being updated hardware wise. After a while, it wouldn't be able to continue.
Yeah, that would be my big. Well, I mean, Switch does it all the time. They don't get updated hardware, and you're fine. As long
That's
as
because their games are already done.
I think the key would be is you wouldn't be able to play Cyberpunk 2020 or 2077.
Not without remote play.
Yeah. But you could again Stardew Valley,
Faster than light, something like that, yeah.
stuff like that for sure. So interested to see where this goes. It's
Title
fascinating. That
Goose
they
game.
Stupid goose made a picnic. 2 levels into that game is pretty good. It's interesting to see them attack this space because nobody else is. So Nintendo's going to have to respond.
No one wants to
eventually.
touch it. Nintendo owns the handheld space. They made Sony run.
Speaking of
no
Sony-
one wants to go into that.
Sony released their PlayStation ecosystem stats, which are absolutely fascinating. We have 106 million console units sold as of the presentation, 1.15 billion PlayStation 4 games sold, specifically PlayStation 4 games. This was not announced as digital or physical, so we don't really know how the breakup works there.
Yeah, we don't know exactly how much of it is, what
Correct.
it includes. Does that include PlayStation Plus?
That's how this works, but still fascinating stats regardless.
Yeah.
I would think.
Oh, yeah.
Numbers do need context. I agree with you there. 5 million PlayStation VR headsets sold. So far, the most successful VR headset. If you were to combine all of its competitors, not even half of what the PlayStation VR has sold.
But I mean, again, you break
easy.
these numbers down. That is basically based on the life of the console, and we have discussed that 20% of this console, that means somewhere around 22 million of it, has been sold within this past year.
Yeah.
So, like, if you were to look at the attachment rate last year compared to this year, it would be vastly different. But when you take it all into account, it's only 2 games a year per console, which seems super low.
Haven't gotten to that point yet. We talked about games attachment rate.
I know.
You're
'cause
jumping ahead.
I did the numbers.
Yeah, you're jumping ahead, though. I haven't talked about the actual attachment rate because that's a number.
Did I hurt your feelings?
No, I'm just saying
I'm
you're
sorry.
confusing the audience.
I'm sorry, everybody. I hurt his butthole.
They're
103 million active
pissy with each
monthly
other.
users, 38.8 million PlayStation Plus subscribers, and an attachment rate of 10 games.
10.8.
Did you want to talk about? Those numbers now?
No.
No. Yeah. Okay. Cool.
We
Yeah.
had an entire discussion about this on Mark.
Yeah.
Well, I got in an argument with someone on Twitter. It freaking pissed me off.
Yeah.
But the thing is like on average for a successful console, 10 is about the success rate that you're looking for. To me, it just blew my mind that if you break that attachment rate down to even like for the strongest 5 years, it's 2 games
Yeah.
per year. And I'm like, that's why I'm asking, does that include PlayStation Plus? Because you get 2 games a month from PlayStation Plus, and 40% of people who have a PS4 have a PlayStation Plus subscription.
I will wager that they don't include them because you don't purchase those games and you don't keep them after your subscription lasts.
I agree with that for that specific reason, and also it would make no sense for 40% of people to only download 2 of those games a year out of the PS Plus subscription. It's still not being more.
I hate to break it to you, there are plenty of people who have PS Plus who don't download.
Oh, I know. We know some of them. It doesn't even make. I'm like, what? You have these games. Why don't you use them?
You have access to them.
You complain. Oh, I don't want to have to buy another game. Use your.
You know, if you had downloaded that game in June of 2018, you'd be in the library. But I digress. Nonetheless, impressive stats. It's obvious that Sony is leading the charge here. They are not going to E3 as we discussed earlier, so we are fascinated on what they're going to be doing next. You and I have discussed a possible event in February, which is what the rumors are.
Yeah.
Can't wait to talk about that when it actually happens.
A lot of swirling of a large.
Yep. Got it.
Yeah.
Moving on. It looks like there are 2
Man, my brain went blank.
interesting retro pieces of technology here for gaming.
Acquisition,
The retro,
thank you.
the Super Retro Champ plays SNES and Genesis cartridges. This is a handheld where you can do the SNES on top, Genesis on the bottom, allows you to play it.
Thing's a monster.
It's a big, beefy piece of hardware, but the fact that you can actually play those old games on there is really, really cool.
I hate that my mom got rid of all my old stuff without telling me when I was at college. I was like,
Let it go. Let it go.
Man.
I know.
one day I'm going to need this.
Then, of course, there's the Hyperkin Retron Jr. That name kills me. Which allows the playing of Game Boy, Game Boy Color, and Game Boy Advance games on your TV. So this is a smaller console. You would stick the cartridge in there. It up-reses everything, puts it to the proper proportions.
You can play Pokemon on the big screen like it was supposed to be.
Nice color screen. It's great. Actually, I
Like
don't
it
know
was
if,
supposed to.
I
Like
don't
it
know
was
if you
meant to be playing on a screen
remember
this small.
But during the Nintendo 64, you had the pack that you could add. It's called the expansion pack. You could put your Game Boy game in there for Pokemon. Turn on Pokemon Stadium. Boom, playing Pokemon Yellow on the big screen. I did it all the time. You better believe it because I'm a nerd.
Yeah.
But very cool. These are interesting devices. I, for one, will not buy these. I prefer things that emulate because of the fact that if I'm going to buy a retro machine, I want it to be small like the SNES Classic. I want it to be something that I can carry with me.
Yeah.
You know, as cool as these are, I just don't think
It's
they're
a cool
little
coffee
handheld-
table piece.
Yeah.
Like the handheld consoles that the two
Yeah,
about the Linux-based ones.
exactly.
The
Yeah.
Arduino that we have, the game shell or whatever.
That's called an Arduino. What's an Arduino? Doesn't matter. Move on. Of course, we had some innovations in audio as well. It looks like the Bluetooth standard is changing. With the
Super excited for
Bluetooth
this.
LE audio standard, which will allow for multi-streaming to a device.
So that's already been a Bluetooth.
In multiple devices.
That's-
Not
Yeah.
just for the headsets,
Yep.
but for the devices themselves.
That's already been a Bluetooth 4 capable feature of like some trickery that's done with it, that kind of thing. So Samsung devices were really good at it. You could hook 2 speakers up. You could say this is the right, that's the left, and you get stereo audio from 2 different Bluetooth speakers, that kind of thing.
So the way that the Apple iPods work is that it gets signal to one,
Yeah,
and
and
then
the
it
other one
sends
the
it
other
to
way,
the
yeah.
other. Where now it would be able to send the signal to both of them, which is awesome because, and not only that, but they can hook up to multiple devices. So, say if I wanted to switch my headset to my other phone, I don't have to disconnect here and reconnect here. That has been like I still don't understand why it's taken this long to get there. In my opinion,
It's the standard Bluetooth.
I know
Bluetooth
but
LE
it hurts me.
Bluetooth LE that came out with Bluetooth 4 had to become sort of a big blow up of a thing, essentially, because I don't know if you guys remember, like old school Bluetooth, if you were using it without plugging anything in your car or without plugging in your phone in your car, it would ruin your battery life.
Yes.
Because Bluetooth 2, Bluetooth 3 were both extremely power intensive whenever it came to communication because it was very active. There was constant communication back and forth to the point that if you broke a connection, it was gone.
Could you do that again? How much communication? Okay, just make sure. We're children here on the show.
Apparently, yeah.
Get a few drinks at us, and all of a sudden, out comes the cock jokes.
It doesn't take a few drinks.
You'll have seen our intro.
That's a big cock joke. That's a metaphor, fool.
No, that was pretty
That was
blatant.
pretty literal, yeah. So Bluetooth low energy and sort of a passive Bluetooth standard here has always been great. It's been wonderful to implement with new devices that use it, that kind of thing. Like smart locks have been using it now for a little while to be able to integrate like a new tech to unlock your home. Tesla uses it with the Model 3 whenever it comes to unlocking your vehicle.
But it being open source, isn't that kind of like a security risk?
No. So the idea, like when it's open source, you can see how it's structured and you can see the code and everything like that, but you can't change the code. The code is what the code is. You can understand the security protocol and understand how it works, but realistically, it's always secured by a certificate that you don't have access to on one end or the other.
Yeah, that would be the point, is that even though you understand the workings of it, the way the security tokens work is that they're randomized per device, right? Or however you want to do it. So,
or the algorithm's done in such a way that you maybe can wind it one way, but you can't unwind it back the other way, that kind of thing. But like the idea is like it's still secure based on the individual basis, but the idea is that anybody can understand it to implement something for it. That's why it's called an open standard.
yeah. I am excited because with the release of this, there's no more tomfoolery, no more trickery. Like people are going to have access to it right away rather than having to find ways to work around it. And that's the important part.
And that's awesome because that means that things are going to be, not working on like a haphazard condition.
Honestly, it's implementing features that people have been putting, or companies have been putting workarounds in for currently.
Correct. But I mean, when we're talking about Samsung and their workaround, a workaround may work for one device, but not another. So they have to come up with another workaround. Right, so this is effortless for that kind of technology.
Then you guys would be out of a job. This is what you guys are for.
Yeah, it's called job security, which is why I will delete this from the internet. Moving on to some one more piece of audio news, because there wasn't a whole lot there, but I found this one fascinating. The Amazfit Power Buds last twice as long as the AirPods for half the price.
I saw that. I had to do a little bit more research into this to understand what the heck was going on here.
Yeah.
It's just better.
It's
just a better design.
But
it's also newer. I mean, how long have the AirBuds been out now? 2 years at least?
Yeah,
year and a half, I think.
Something like that. They came out with the 8, right?
All I know is they didn't have a really cool Apple commercial like the
No,
original
wasn't
iPhone
that
or
far
an iPod,
back.
which had the Fratellis.
It probably would be 3 years now because they have 2 generations of AirPods and then they have AirPods Pro. So yeah, actually, maybe it would be the 8. Actually, come to think of it.
So I mean that's
Or
like
the X.
light years when you come to talk about technology.
Well, and I've had this conversation multiple times. I've talked with you about it. I've talked to our tall friend about it because
our tall friend.
Well,
Just call him
both-
the Ginger.
both of them have very. Do you have AirPods?
Yes,
yeah.
I don't have AirPods.
You have a variation of it.
I
right?
have the Sony WF-1000
Yeah.
XM3s.
And my question is always, how long is the battery life? It's 4 hours. Like, well, 4 hours doesn't work for me.
It's 4 hours on the device, 30 minutes to charge from the pod, and the pod gives you 8 extra hours, that kind of thing. But the problem is that means you have to do 4 hours, 30 minutes, 4 hours, 30 minutes, 4 hours. You're good.
I have a solution for you. I wear a thing called an LG Active,
yes.
and it lasts for like 2 days.
Hence why I still have this right here. But with this, where it's 8 hours, you put it in the pod, it gets you up to 20 hours of battery life for the charge. Like, that's absolutely, it's $100.
And that's something that's been kind of a debated piece for a while. It depends on the shape of. I didn't see the shape of the case itself, I guess, because
Similar to what you have.
well, so
size?
one of the problems that people run into is the battery size that has to go in there to be able to get a bigger charge out of it.
Yeah.
means a bigger case.
Or a better
But that also means
battery.
it doesn't fit in your pocket very well.
I think I need a bigger box.
Like that's where AirPods still kind of win out in
Really
some
bigger
respects, is
plane.
that they're thin and
Oh.
they have sort of rounded edges and whatnot on them to fit better. Yeah, see, to me that looks like the to me that looks like the Gearbuds case.
Man,
it's very
that glare.
Sorry.
it's,
Yeah, that's what
it's
Steve was using.
Very cylindrical
Very
with the
similar.
caps on the ends, like, or the rounded ends, that kind of thing. Like it looks like it'll do okay, but
Yeah.
I think it'll be too
They have multiple cases,
large.
apparently.
Yeah, see, that's way too big. Just that big panel like that.
Really? You think so?
Yeah,
In your
because
pocket?
I mean, you're talking about like this.
No, it's not that
No.
big. No.
No, not with the earbuds that would be in there.
It's-
You're talking about it
they're
would be
like
like
this
this, but
size.
the dimension of it looks a lot thinner too.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, girls
We'll put-
carry
he'll
pocket
put the
beers that are
pictures up
bigger than that,
there.
man.
Regardless, I am excited because you're right. This is expansion of that technology. You may be correct. We will see as they release that
Yeah.
that out
I've
there.
seen
I
that
think the-
cylindrical one. Steve was using something very similar to it, and it was actually fairly it was fine. Like he
Yeah.
had no problem putting it in his pocket.
I see this winning out in the Android marketplace.
Probably made him
Agreed.
feel better about himself.
100%.
Actually,
From an iPhone perspective,
You-
AirPods are kind of your only
Yeah.
good
I love
choice
making
there.
jokes by myself.
Yeah, exactly.
It was very funny. I listened to it too.
But I don't see this being a competitor for AirPods necessarily. I see this being a competitor for the Sony True Wireless. I see this being a competitor for the Anker True Wireless.
Yeah.
That kind of stuff. Like the cheaper end, the Android side of things.
There's a
of like,
lot
it
of
does better.
wireless headset buds right now. I've been seeing. I mean, and I know this because I'm walking through Uptown. Uptown is like a playground for anybody who wants to do statistics.
Does it funk you up?
It does. Uptown funked me up. So when I go around into
There you
like
go.
Bank of America, I know, right? So good. I see all these. I've been actually noticing now that you're mentioning it, all these different types and styles of earbuds, and I'm like, why are they choosing these ones? Why are there so many of them out right now? It's because the market's being flooded with all of this tech that was really cool when Apple came out with it, and then it became cheaper and then a little bit more efficient, and now you get the same stuff for a $60 pair of headsets.
Think about it this way too. Part of the reason that Apple succeeded so well in this is they developed their own processor chip
Yeah.
for this
Yeah.
specifically. Like they had Samsung develop it, but they had
Ooh, those
Samsung
cheap
develop.
bastards.
They had Samsung develop a processor specifically for this.
Yeah.
And the idea is it's called the W1, I think, the idea is it's meant for small devices like this to allow for Apple connectivity, Apple style connectivity, that kind of thing.
It doesn't
where-
work on Bluetooth?
It does.
Okay.
But it's sort of a wrapper over top of Bluetooth, using Bluetooth Low Energy, if I recall, in conjunction with Bluetooth 5. So the idea is like Bluetooth Low Energy allows you to discover the rest of your devices because apparently it's a smooth transition to go from like your iPhone to your Mac.
Yeah, Mac, yeah.
The
If you're-
stuff that we like.
Which I tested with our tall friend and didn't seem to work correctly, but I don't know.
Sounds like an Apple device to me.
But no, so like the idea anyway is like you're listening to music on your iPhone, and let's say you decide, oh hey, I'm gonna play this YouTube video on my laptop, and your laptop will realize that your phone is playing music to your headphones that you might be actively listening to. It says, hey, do you want to listen to on this device? Sure. Auto connect from one device to the other, and immediately you're listening to the YouTube video on the other side.
But it still has to do the disconnect and reconnect thing,
Right, but the idea is that W1 chip is responsible for doing the device connection from one to the other.
which is cool. I mean, if I had that kind of seamless reaction with my headset, that would be great. And now I'm going to get that, and I don't need to have an Apple iPad pod.
The other thing too is Apple and Samsung
Yep.
being so tightly coupled together, they may also do the dual device connectivity.
Which would be great, yeah. So that means
I
you
can't
can use
wait
them
for that.
and- Yeah.
I don't care what device it would have been. I would have bought a brick if it would just go between multiple devices.
It'd be very odd for you to carry it around often
Nope.
A brick? Why would he carry a brick?
because that's what he said he would buy.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I mean that's weird to keep in your pocket, but
Okay,
Yeah,
so we're
it'll
gonna
hit
move
both of you.
through.
I just-
We're gonna move
bam.
through the miscellaneous
Indiscriminately.
section of CES rather quickly, which is unfortunate, but we're running out of time. So,
Oh my God.
looks like Google Assistant is getting plenty of updates in 2020. It's gonna be
Shocker.
quicker, faster,
Yeah, right.
easier, smart home
Shocker.
setup.
Actually, kind of is because they drop stuff.
Setting up scheduled actions, more smart home devices attached to it, leaving notes, speed dial, reading online content, etc., etc. Cool, yeah,
Neat,
got
yeah.
it. Impossible Pork, the next big meatless phase. So we had Impossible.
What does this have to
burgers.
do with electronics?
It takes electronics to make it. I don't know. fucking cool though. Impossible Pork, still cool. Moving on to Scan Watch, which looks like it's going to help with sleep apnea. This is a watch that's going to not only keep track, but as you start to fade out, it's actually going to give you a little bit of a jolt, vibration, wake you up.
I find out about this
That
now,
sounds
and
like
I
it's
just
just going to
scheduled.
disturb REM sleep.
So the problem is with sleep apnea, as you know, is that you stop breathing. The whole point is it's just enough to like trigger the response of like
with sleep
without waking you up.
With sleep apnea, you yourself actually ruin your own REM.
I know. I have
know-
it.
So do I. But no, I find out about this, and I'm like, I actually have a sleep study scheduled for February,
There you
so
go.
figures, I could have
Yeah.
just
I
bought
should
this.
say
No,
I had it, then they cauterized my throat. That's why my voice is so low.
That's why it's so low.
just
Not
like
the
little
cigarettes.
just little tidbits into our medical history here.
There you go. L'Oreal Perso is releasing a fully customized a product that allows you to customize and create your own lipstick and skincare products. I thought this was fascinating, actually, because L'Oreal is obviously a company that makes money off of this.
I feel like
They're
I saw
owned
the
by
word
Johnson
L'Oreal
and
and I
Johnson.
skipped over it.
So you would, what?
Aren't they owned by Johnson and Johnson?
Regardless of the fact they still make all their money off the lipstick and,
Yeah.
and blush
Hair
and all
care
that,
products
and
and
you're
all
able
that
to
stuff.
actually create this in your house. So you would buy some of the material from them, but you can mix it to whatever shade you want.
That's actually kind of really cool.
Yeah.
I mean, well, here's the thing though. Like, I just got done watching a couple of documentaries, one of them including that they make some makeup that you think is like legit from stores, and it's made with like glue and horse urine and all sorts of
That's
stuff.
exactly how that works.
Yeah, that you buy from like some of the Chinese markets or the like import shippers for the fall stuff. Like there was literally
Ladies, please, I don't want to be kissing horse urine.
I do.
No, what's the series
60%
on Netflix?
of the time, it works every time.
Explained, I think,
Yes.
did a piece on it.
Yes.
But anyway, I think that's neat. For some reason, the first thing that popped in my head was like this big, expensive $1,000 self-drink mixer that my parents had bought a while back. Like where you put different types of alcohol and mixers into it, and then you tell it from the app what you want to make, and it will mix the alcohol for you into this device.
That's called lazy, dude.
Yeah.
That's
Exactly.
That's called.
No, that's
You
what I
make
had
your
to say.
own cocktail.
Well, not only that, but like after a while, like if you don't actually service that equipment correctly, like it's not going to go well.
You're saying the lines are gonna get dirty? You have to clean them?
Oh my God.
You just flush alcohol through it. Fine.
There you go. Problem solved.
Yeah, that's true.
Pampers announced the Pampers Lumi, which is being worked on by engineers and pediatricians to monitor your child while they sleep. It's $350. It is a smart diaper that also has a camera setup, so you're able to monitor the child, and it
am
also
I gonna
monitors when they're going to sleep. When they're
I was
wet
about to ask, what
themselves.
am I going to stare at? And I really don't want to know.
The child. What else are you going to stare at? Come on.
From their diaper.
pedophile. No, it's a
He called you a
You just
pedo.
said it had a camera.
it's a
Smart diaper with a camera.
it's a camera to look at the kid. And
All
the
I know is
diaper
it
has
can be
a-
hacked for a pedo. This is not a good
The
idea.
diaper has
Oh, yeah, look at those
a
vital signs.
sensor to see if the kid has gone to the bathroom recently. That's the whole point of it.
I mean,
Oh, he
okay,
peed on the
so-
camera.
So I would agree with that from the perspective of I wouldn't have to smell my future child's diaper for crap.
Yeah, you just be like, oh, look, they went to the bathroom.
Oh, they pooped.
Well, this is-
Oh my God.
Yeah, no. Well, suddenly my phone gets a notification. Your child is.
All right, well, yeah. Dabby is going to combine all your streaming services onto one device, so you would put in all your logins, similar to what Apple's talking about for their system, like
Apple TV.
Apple TV.
Yeah.
Same thing, where it would
What's
be
it called again?
Dabby. Yep, there you go.
Yeah.
GE Kitchen Hub, which is my favorite thing I saw at CES, is basically a microwave that has a smart screen on top of it where you're able to connect to the internet, so you can put recipes on there, you can go through your
cool.
stuff,
I
Google
think that's a
search.
good idea, yeah.
Very, very cool. And then, of course, Twitter announced that they will finally let you control who can reply to your tweets, as well as allowing contributions to tweets as you retweet them.
Yeah.
But there's still a feature I'm not seeing in there.
Which is?
Editing.
Oh, man, who'd allow that?
God,
would you do
why
that?
can we not? Because it would be so nice to not have to.
I don't know. The
redo-
internet's been screaming about this for years.
All I'm saying is maybe you guys should live with the decisions you make.
Nope.
Well, life is going to be hard
At
for
that
you.
point, I'm just going to delete them and try it again. Like,
Yeah,
Yeah, it's
that's
exactly
the
what I do every
point.
day.
Like, it's dumb. Like you.
So we've gone through CES. There's a lot going on here. Please let us know what you think is the most innovative.
Actually, I wanted to add, and it was showed to me.
It's called a rundown. Quick.
Okay, so it was actually a motorcycle that swapped between a rocket and a lowrider. So you can add, the handlebars move.
okay. Like
and
a
the pegs
style-
move.
You said
Style
rocket.
bike.
You
Yeah,
said
you said-
rocket. You and I were both on the same page of flames on the back. Just
Sorry,
this
Rice
is
Rock.
not a damn anime. Like you don't get to become a rocket. Not that works.
no, I can see that.
Don't
The
call it
the
that
wheels.
either. That's racist. Come on. What is wrong with you? God. This whole show is falling apart.
What happens when we get that hour mark?
Oh my god. Okay.
But that's neat. I like that idea.
That's cool. It's time to move on. We're going to last call.
Last call!
You don't have to go home, but you sure as hell don't have to stay here. We've got a few little housekeeping here. Of course, we are sitting here drinking our special guest, which is Blake's Hard Cider. Not a fan. Personally,
Nope, not really.
Not really.
I mean,
I like the apple and I
Yeah.
like the mojito.
the mojito is the best one.
No, I think I like the apple more.
yeah, I think I like the apple more.
Both wrong.
You're drinking Tylenol.
Listen, somebody has to lay to that soldier. The mixed berry is very much the worst, and I drank all of them but one.
Very bitter.
Yeah, and thank you.
And I
Here for you
like bitter.
guys. We do have a cool new channel, which we talked about previously, but we do want to pimp it once
Yeah.
more. It is The Strange Garage.
Oh, yeah.
Got a brand new video up, right, this week?
Yeah, I mean, right now we have a total of 5 videos up, 3 of which come from my personal YZ125 dirt bike build series.
Ooh.
Where we take you through the 1997 piece of trash that I bought and turned it into a usable dirt bike.
What kind of two-wheeled vehicle would you call that, John?
A dirt rocket.
Slower ice rocket.
We're trying to correct him, folks. I promise. We get the electrodes next week. That way we can zap him every time he talks.
I'm sorry, but that's what I grew up here and get called.
I
We'll go get
understand.
Enzo's dog
Still
collar for the
not
next one.
Okay. There you go. The dog collar will work. I've added a new segment to our little bit of description that you can find floating above John because he's wrong. It's like a thundercloud. It's angry at him.
Hello!
Ding,
And
ding, 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 ding.
It is called...
Why? Why? Why was that necessary?
We're falling apart. I hope you left by this point. I am adding a weekly reading section. I'm going to pick an article that you should be looking into.
Teary.
They're longer reads. Because we can't talk about them, we don't always have the time to. I definitely think you should look at this one. This is a Kotaku article discussing how various video game companies in the United States are creating a reward credit system for their employees, and it's working against them. So basically, if you work a certain amount of hours, you get a credit. If you don't take bathroom breaks, you get credit.
What?
But if you do these things, you get those credits taken away from you. Do. Haha.
If you do, you get credits
If you
taken away.
do, you do not
This
get the
sounds
do.
awful. It is awful. Feel free to read it. It's very good. And of course, we have our deal of the week, which is a humble bundle that was announced today, actually. I got the email right before I left work, which was great.
Cool.
It is called the Sweet Farm Deal. So, of course, for $1, it gets you access to... excuse
Death.
me as I die on camera. Gives you access to... how do you pronounce that? Niche, Magic Cat, and then Evergarden. If you pay more than the average, which currently of the recording is $7.04. Equinox, Ultimate Chicken Horse, which is fantastic.
Oh, yeah, that's worth it.
And then Summerost 3. And then finally, for $10, which is not a whole lot,
No,
you
and
get
that's
access
still
to
worth it.
Stardew Valley. And,
Yeah.
of course,
Yeah.
every game below.
Yeah, easily worth it.
Their soundtracks involved. It supports the charity for Sweet Farm itself. So
Cool.
definitely dive into that. And finally, we do have our Discord. There's a link where you can join us and you can yell at John for his racist comments.
Please
on
do.
motorcycles.
How is that a racist comment?
How is that a race? Did you ask that on camera? There's called plausible deniability, and you just threw it out the window. Threw it out the window.
All I'm saying is...
No. You don't get to
Stop
talk.
talking before it gets worse.
Don't get to talk about the motorcycles any longer. It's over. Moving on to the question of the week, which is ironically John's question. What scene from a movie is so ingrained in your memory to the point of no return? Like, this is a scene that is burned in
Can
your
be good
memory.
or bad.
Incredibly visceral that you cannot let go.
Mine?
I guess so. I guess
Let's get the
It's
racist
very
comments
reminiscent
out of
to
the
what
way
we saw
now.
earlier. It'd be from Your Highness, where we were watching the Minotaur raping the dude, and then the Minotaur just pulls back, and his dick just comes out and plumps down. Because you don't know what's going on at first, and it just pans to it. And you just see him, and he's like, "Help me!" And all of a sudden, the Minotaur pulls out, and you're
When
like,
you asked, when you said I have a good question, this is not what I thought we would be talking about.
We should have gone with your question for the
We
week.
should have. Why was I so dumb?
Brent had one planned,
Oh.
and instead we positioned ourselves for this response.
I apologize to all of our viewers.
The problem is that everything he just talked about,
How is that?
I really shouldn't blurt out because there's nothing wrong with it.
That's what I mean.
There's everything wrong with it.
That is exactly what happened though. It burned in your face. You remember? You hadn't even seen it, and you're like, oh, that's what happened to me. I wish I never saw that.
I'm never going to forget that, and I've never seen it.
Yeah, I know, right? That's what I'm talking about. And then later on, you saw him wearing the Minotaur's cock on his because you can't cut the horn off the Minotaur.
Cut the horn off.
Quit while you're behind.
You can't cut the horn off a Minotaur, so he had to take a trophy.
I just want you to know when he asked this question, I was like, that's right. We've seen so many films together. Boondock Saints. Some of them are bad, like Sun and Deutsch, New York. There's
my
Southland
God.
Tales. But I imagined in some way that this was going to be like an impactful, emotional scene.
Why would you think that?
I don't know.
Mine is.
It usually is with us, but I just thought about it when I was sitting at the table.
I'm
And
proud.
I was like, man, I wish I never saw that because I will never forget it.
John's got a whole year before he gets to put a question in the question of the week column. That's for sure.
We need to know your response ahead of time if you ever pitch a question again.
I will not be treated
It needs to be screened ahead
like
of
I'm in an
time.
internment camp.
Oh, come on. Stop.
At least he didn't say Rice Rocket again. My answer has to be the ending of Fight Club.
Yeah.
The final scene
Yeah.
where
That was a
Marla
good
comes
one.
up to him, they hold hands, buildings explode, Where's My Mind plays. It is a scene that will never leave me.
I can totally understand that. That's a good one.
Mine is. Have you guys seen the movie End of Watch? I probably talked about this a
No,
few
I have
times.
not, but I would like for you to tell me about this anyways.
Man, it's kind of the
It's fine. I actually
big
have it on my
spoiler?
list.
kind of the big spoiler. So,
Do you have to remember, I'm also the person who's like, I've never played Last of Us. Let me spoil it. Now I got to go play it.
Okay. So I'm a huge Jake Gyllenhaal fan, which makes this one of my all-time favorite movies by chance.
All those posters in
because-
your room make sense.
That's where that second spot
Don't
came
tell
from.
them about that. But this whole movie is a real gut wrencher, like of just like the actions there, and then it's like really sad, and then it's like, oh my god, I can't believe this, that kind of thing. And the oh my god, I can't believe this moment is where you come from a point where. You sure you want me to spoil it?
Go ahead. I'm in.
All right.
Do it.
Michael Pena and Jake Gyllenhaal are both in an alleyway trying to fight their way out of this urban environment where they're being targeted specifically by a Mexican gang. So they get to a point in an alleyway where they get approached by a truck with a 50 cal, and one of them gets shot. Jake Gyllenhaal gets shot first. So then Michael Pena takes out the truck, that kind of thing, and turns around to Brian, his partner, and realizes that he's been shot and comes over to try to help him, that kind of thing, and tries to call for help, but backup still hasn't shown up yet. It's been taking a couple minutes for them to all sort of get together and pull up at the same time, sort of thing. Well, while Michael Pena is over him trying to hold Jake Gyllenhaal, who appears dead at this point, Michael Pena turns around and realizes 3 of the main gang members have come up behind him with AKs. And as soon as he reaches for his handgun to turn on them, they just unload into him. And he just falls over Jake Gyllenhaal.
Ugh.
And the next scene is, they're coming into the funeral and all that stuff. And you see all the cops getting out in full dress and this, that, or the other. And you go into the church, and Jake Gyllenhaal's sitting there with his arm in a cast. And it's only Michael Pena that's died.
Damn.
And it's just sort of this, like, oh my God.
Yeah, because you followed them through the entire film.
The survivor's guilt would be insane.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it like he has to get help to get stood up to the podium to say words about him, and he just can't get anything out. And like Jake Gyllenhaal does a really good job of like showing the sadness in this, that kind of thing, and it really just throws you for a loop.
Can you
It's just-
imagine if at the end of that movie you got assassinated walking out of that funeral?
I swear to God.
Why do you have to take
Could you
some?
imagine if he got raped by a Minotaur in the end of the film? I thought that's what you were going to
Why do you have
say.
to take something good and just smash it?
Thanks for coming to Happy Hour this week. Hope you enjoyed the ending of this.
Hope you enjoyed getting raped
Right?
by a Minotaur.
Why is that so bad?
Cheers.
Cheers.
I don't know.